Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our live stream service on this beautiful Sunday morning. Can't tell you how much I'm missing church and missing our people, just being in church and in fellowship with you guys. Hopefully we get to see you guys again soon. Today we're continuing with our series on the 12 pillars of ministry, and we're looking at administration today. And administration, I call this the ministry of good governance. We're going to read through scripture, 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40, a very short passage of scripture. And it says, "But everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way." But everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. This verse comes after Paul was speaking to his readers about the gifts of the Spirit and the way church is actually managed and run and conducted. And he was talking about not denying the gifts of prophecy, speaking in tongues in the church, but he said everything should be done in a fitting and an orderly way. The ministry of administration, or the task of administration, is something that most people associate with just filing and paperwork. And I think this is more than just filing and paperwork. Administration is actually the comprehensive planning, execution, and review of activities with the intention of delivering efficient and verifiable outputs. Sounds like a mouthful, but I'm going to break that down for you a little bit. So we're talking about planning, we're talking about execution, we're talking about verifiable outputs, delivering efficient and verifiable outputs. Now, the first thing we want to see is that administration is actually a calling. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 28, and Romans chapter 12, verses 7 to 8 tell us that it's a gifting of the Spirit to be able to administrate a church or to administrate a ministry. Now, agreed or understandably, the word administration is not used in these verses, and the actual original text refers to leadership, or the leadership structure within the church, and it's referred to as a gifting, as a ministry that comes with a particular calling. And it's important for us to see that this ministry of administration is not something that can be just carried out without this gifting. It's something that needs to be done with a call or a gifting directed towards us. And it's important because administration is actually what glues all of the different ministries of the church together. While other ministries may be interdependent on each other, and they may draw on each other's strengths and abilities and resources, administration brings everything together, and we're going to see how that's done today. So again, we've said it's not about filing and it's not about paperwork. Those are parts of it. Those are just one aspect of administration, but it's more than that. So administration requires planning and delivery. It requires good planning. It requires well thought out planning, and this is important for us to see as a church, that everything about the ministry has to be well thought out. It has to be properly planned, and we need to be able to deliver on our plans in an efficient and effective manner. It's important for us to get a grip or an idea of how we plan and how we manage the actual delivery of our ministry and our tasks within a church environment. The important thing about administration also is that it must have the tasks that we plan, the tasks that we execute must have value. They must work. They must be able to achieve results. It must be meaningful for people. People who receive from us in terms of our ministry, in terms of what we deliver, must see value in what we do. And administration, the Ministry of Administration, is responsible for making sure that whatever we plan, whatever we execute, the tasks that we plan around have meaning. It is valuable. Something else that must happen in order for administration to be efficient and have verifiable outputs is we must have a review process in place. In other words, how do we look at what we are doing and ask, is this working? Is this making a difference to people? Does it actually add value to somebody's life? Does it add value to the ministry? Is it making a difference in my community, to the body of believers that we minister to? Is this ministry or is this task or are the actions of the church making a difference? So if we look at this as a calling, we need to understand that as a calling it will come with special abilities, special gifts. There are people who have studied administration, there are people who hold degrees in administration, and they have all of the learning and the knowledge that goes with a university degree or a diploma, and they can manage this task or this ministry very, very well because of that knowledge. And it's important then that people who have this gifting or have this desire to do something like this in the church, it's important to see that they have to have the knowledge and the training required to effectively carry out this ministry of administration. So we said it's the ministry of good governance. It means that the leadership of the church, the ability to lead the church, to lead the ministry, has this ability to govern well, to manage all aspects of the church, and especially this administration process, to manage it in such a way that it adds value, it is seen as something that is meaningful and something that is that brings value to people around us, right? So a final thing about the characteristics or the principles or the tenets of administration is that we must be able to keep good records. There's great value in being able to be effective and efficient in terms of our record keeping, having good housekeeping skills, making sure that documents are filed, minutes are kept, making sure that we have regular records, that everything is documented, paperwork is put in the right places, plans are put in place, and these plans are conveyed to people, that we manage the way in which we review those plans. Are they being fulfilled? Are the tasks that we set out to achieve being monitored well? Are they achieving results? So administration requires that we take the gifting, the calling that we have for leadership, calling that we have to lead a church in terms of its ministry, making sure that we plan well, making sure that we execute on those plans well, making sure that that the plans that we put in place have value, they have meaning, they translate into tangible results, things that would work for people and work for communities. We must be able to review our progress, review what we are doing, and ask: are we actually doing this well? Is it making a difference? Is it actually resulting in change or in effective ministry in the areas that we're trying to reach? Right. The second thing about a good administration or good governance is that it must always be aligned with our core values. It must always be aligned with what we stand for. So a part of this, a very, very important part of administration, is this process of defining our mission statement, defining or developing our vision statement, outlining our core values. We need to ask, what is our purpose? Why are we here? Where are we going? What do we stand for? These are the questions we need to ask and we need to answer. And in so doing, we need to define whether we we stand for particular things, and put these things down on paper, put them into a statement, let them become statements that the church is familiar with. Know what we stand for. Know why we are here. Why do we exist as a church or as an organization? Why are we in this place? Why do we serve this particular community? Why are we serving these particular people? Why do we do what we do? What are our values? What do we stand for? And then we need to always make sure that everything that we do, everything that we carry out within our ministry, all aspects of our ministry, we must align these tasks, we must align these activities with our purpose, with our values, our vision. We must be able to put in place an effective strategy to ensure that all of our tasks are aligned with our mission, our vision, and our values. Something important to ask then is, what do we do if certain individuals or certain activities contravene the above codes, or contravene our mission, our values, or our vision? If it goes against it, what do we do if we find someone or something or certain activities that are not in alignment with our mission, our vision, and our values? In the book of 3 John, verses 9 to 10, there's only one chapter in the book of 3 John, and verses 9 to 10 speaks of a guy called Diotrephes. John writes to his people that are listening to him, and he speaks about this guy Diotrephes, who had constant opposition to the apostles, to leaders, was constantly having issues with people in the church, preventing the leaders of the church from visiting this particular church, and turning people against the leadership or the apostles, it seems, in this chapter. And he says that he will deal with him when he comes. He says he will remind him of his actions and take disciplinary action against him. And it is important for us as a church to have a structure by which and in which in the manner in which we are able to deal with these kind of things. If something is not in alignment with our goals, not in alignment with our mission, our values, how do we deal with it? Now, I'm going to spend just a few minutes just talking about this. It's important for us to see that church is not a place where we it's not something we use for our personal agendas and our personal vendettas, right? So we don't take the opportunity to discipline people based on our own personal gripes we have with people. So the pulpit, for example, as you all know, in terms of my ministry, the pulpit is not a place for us to vent our personal gripes. It's not a place for us to talk about or to take issue with people based on our own personal issues that we that we have. And I try very much to respect the pulpit in terms of that. The pulpit is a place for teaching. It's a place that it's a platform we use to educate people, to bring people closer to God, to encourage and build people up. Now, yes, we are required to bring discipline or to meet our discipline in terms of the ministry and in terms of our activities within the church. But understand that concept of discipline is not insulting someone, or not. It doesn't involve bringing people down off the pulpit. In my history as a pastor, especially early on in my ministry, I fell into that trap a few times where I would use the pulpit as a platform for my own personal agendas. And I think God has reminded me very clearly and in no uncertain terms that is not the place to do that, and not the manner in which we do it. There's a very specific guideline laid out by Jesus and laid out in Scripture in terms of how we deal with people and how we manage misalignment of values and vision within the church. So, and it's clear that Scripture requires us to deal with people personally, approach them on a personal level, ask them to meet with you on a personal level, and then deal with these issues on that basis firstly. And Scripture makes it clear that it is only in exceptional circumstances, if people are absolutely unrepentant and will not, and are causing disturbances or causing dissension in the church, that we need to take it to a public platform, and it must be an absolute last resort. So the church is a place where we build people up and we encourage people. So if there's a misalignment of activities or individuals with our vision, our mission, and our purpose, our values, it's important that the leadership of the church address this, firstly privately, secondly with wisdom, and thirdly with love. It needs to be done in a way that builds people up and does not bring the church into disrepute. So aligning our tasks, aligning our activities with our mission, our vision, and our values is vital to good administration. The third thing we need to do as in this ministry of good governance, or this ministry of administration, is to train and develop leaders, develop volunteers to effectively carry out the mission and the vision of the church. In other words, we need to train and develop people to achieve and attain results. It's pointless having a ministry if we do not achieve the kind of results we set out to achieve. If we are not achieving the kind of results that we set out to achieve, and we're consistently doing that, that means we don't have a good review process in place. It means we're not effectively reviewing our activities and making changes to consistently realign ourselves with our vision and our purpose. So we need to train and develop leaders. We need to train and develop people who will, first of all, understand the mission, the vision, and the values of the organization, and also then align their tasks and their activities, align all of what they are doing with the values and the mission and the vision of the church. So the first thing to see here in training and developing leaders is that we must understand that one person can't do everything. One person, it's not possible for one person to be effective and efficient in managing everything within the church. And we find in Exodus chapter 18, verses 13 to 26, Moses' father-in-law gives him some very good advice. Moses was trying to lead people all on his own, and his father-in-law calls him aside and says, "What are you doing? This is not going to work. If you continue this way, you're going to burn yourself out, and you're not going to be an effective leader. You're not going to be there for people when you need them." So he says, do this. Choose people in your in your entire nation, people who are reputed to be wise, and people who are good in terms of leadership and administration. He says, call them together, set a meeting, train them, show them how to be leaders of people, and let them handle the daily tasks. Only the urgent things are to be brought to you. In that way, you won't tire yourself out. So, good advice from Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. And Moses is able to do that, and he finds that it works very, very effectively. In doing that, we find that we are able to ensure that the ministry of the church runs much more efficiently. It achieves greater and better results. In fact, in Acts chapter 6, verses 1 to 7, we find the apostles doing that. They said they were to devote themselves to study of the word, to prayer and intercession, and they wanted to choose people from within the church that would actually carry out the daily tasks of administration. And that's what they did, Acts chapter 6, verses 1 to 7. So, when we are able to train and develop people that effectively carry out the tasks of the church in alignment with the mission, the vision, and the values of the church, we will find that the church then runs as an efficient organization. So this brings me to my next point, that mediocrity must never be the standard of the church. We cannot afford to run a public organization, and especially an organization that seeks to glorify God and to fulfill the plans and purposes of God. We cannot we cannot run an organization like that if we have mediocrity as a standard. So mediocrity must never be the standard of the church. Those who carry out the duties of the church must be able to submit to authority. They must be able to learn and learn from and respect their leaders. And we find this in Hebrews chapter 13, verses 17, that the office bearers, the leadership of the church, the volunteers within the church must be able to respect and submit to their leaders. Now, there's value in being able to do something like this, in that it brings us to the space where we learn from each other, we value each other. When we hear the word submission these days, many of us end up in the space where we start thinking about subversion, and we start thinking about the loss of our rights and our individuality. That's not what submission means. Submission, and we submit to authority all of the time. We submit to our government, we submit to laws, we submit in our workspaces. And it's important to understand that submission is not about subversion. Submission is really us understanding that there are leaders in place, and those leaders have a responsibility to carry out certain God-given tasks, and they have to do it well. So we need to support them. So submission equals support. It doesn't equal a loss of identity. It doesn't equate to a loss of identity. It relates to support, working together, teamwork. And leadership really is about being able to bring people to a space where they understand you're not the boss, but you're a team player, but you have the responsibility to take people forward and to carry a specific vision, which brings me to my next point, that leaders must be servants. They mustn't be proud and arrogant. 1 Peter chapter 5 verses 3 teaches us that leadership is required to be a servant leadership. It was the principle that Jesus taught in his ministry. He said, in order for us to be the greatest among men, or to be great amongst men, we need to be, first of all, be the least. So this is a principle that church leaders need to learn. We're not here to be respected and honored as bosses or as superior leaders. No, we are servants, and we carry out the servant ministry of Christ that he asked us to, or he's anointed us to perform. So the ministry of good governance, or the ministry of administration, involves it encompasses the total ministry of the church. It brings everything together. It's about planning. It's about effectively executing tasks and duties, and it's about bringing people together, training and developing people so that they align themselves and their tasks, they align themselves and their activities with the mission, the vision, and the values of the church. So when you consider getting involved in this ministry of administration, don't think just of paperwork and filing. That's not what administration is about. Administration involves planning, it involves execution, review. It talks a lot about alignment with our mission, vision, and values. And something that's important for us to see as individuals is that we can take this and apply to our personal lives. And indeed, I don't think you'd be able to be a good administrator or a good leader within the context of ministry or even the workplace if you cannot administrate or lead your own personal life, your own home well. So take these principles that they've brought out to you this morning, and bring yourself to the space where you can apply them to your family, apply them to your work context and to church. And let's learn how to lead the ministry of the church by being good administrators and bringing about good governance within the church. God bless you.